need to like ask you when it comes to like the viewer, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm a bit of a novice when it comes to acupuncture.
Right.
What is that?
Yeah.
And how does it help the body? And then after that, when it comes to the other practices that you have to help heal the body, what are those?
Right.
And how are they, and why are they beneficial?
Right. So our clinic is, I would say, acupuncture is probably the main thing that we're known for. Acupuncture, is an ancient medicine that comes from China or East Asia, I should say. The whole area has, been a lot of different things at different times, but East Asian medicine, you could count, China, Japan, Taiwan, Korea. You're getting, but then you can't really separate that from Vietnam, and it's all connected. But acupuncture specifically is the use of needles to stimulate parts of your body to elicit a different physiological reaction. So at its most simple form, you might be interacting with muscle, tendon, nerve. So you're trying to get a tissue that say you have, a strained quad, like one of your muscles in your quadriceps is strained, and it keeps bugging you. It keeps bugging you. It's sore. It's, if you stimulate, a knot in that muscle, you can get a little jump, and that can really help, relieve the pain. So that's like the musculoskeletal side of it. You can work in joint spaces, tendon attachments, all over the body is acupuncture points. There's hundreds of acupuncture points. East Asian medicine and acupuncture goes a lot deeper than that. You can really help people with internal medicine issues, because when you stimulate the nerves, in the body, a lot of the points in our hands and our feet, that's our sensory, it's our working spaces, and the nerves in those parts of our body are like much more sensitive. And so like when you put a needle into some of these points, it's sending a really like strong message in through your central nervous system. And based on where it is and what channel it interacts with, it has like an effect on your nervous and your hormonal system and your internal organ systems. So like people treat all kinds of things with acupuncture and herbs. So like the Chinese herbs is like the other side of the thing that they teach us in school. And that, those herbs, have all the chemicals that the drugs that we have now, like, so if you take, an anti-inflammatory drug, or, even a painkiller drug, or something for your heart, something for whatever part of your body, there's a good chance that the herbs that they were using thousands of years ago have a related compound to what we use now. Because all the medicine we have now was, for the most part, I would say the vast majority of medicine we use, was originally from a plant that they found a way to synthesize and mass produce. Right. So we don't have modern medicine without folk medicine from, time before.
Hey.
So, and in Chinese medicine, what they do is, through thousands of years of experimentation with these plants, is they've made formulas, and those formulas treat your ailments. So you might have 5, 10, 15 different herbs in the formula that they make like a tea out of, and you drink that, and that can be very powerful.
Dang.
So that's East Asian. So that's like acupuncture and East Asian medicine. My specialty is a little bit more on the musculoskeletal. I was a personal trainer for a long time. I consider myself a, amateur athlete, whatever, but so I work with people more on movement and pain. So a lot of things I treat on a day-to-day basis is knee pain, neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, people having struggle with mobility. If they're having a struggle, if they're not performing the way that they want to perform on a sport because they're having a hard time, jumping, they have this thing in their knee. I work with them on that kind of stuff a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a confession. I have a needle phobia.
Yeah.
So when I was like, you should be on the pod, this was an experience for me, because I'm like, why is stabbing myself gonna make me get better?
Yeah, I mean, you're just interacting with the place that the nerves, interact with the body. So like it's crazy. Like a lot of these points, if you have a tense muscle and you needle it in the right spot, you'll see I can feel it through the needle, the whole muscle releasing, and that's just for a muscle, like in joint spaces. You're not going to like this very much probably, but there's what they call E-stim. So it's like, have you ever used like a TENS unit, like the patches that make your muscles kind of twitch?
No.
Okay. So pretty much you have a little device and you have clips that you hook up to two different needles, and then you have a little frequency that goes through it, and it makes your muscles flex, or it makes you feel tapping in your joint space. But what it does is it triggers your brain to release your own natural anti-inflammatories or your own natural pain killing, like analgesic effects. So you're tricking your brain into like making its own drugs.
Wow. Okay. So in so many ways you kind of like smush some of my follow-up questions. So now this is great.
Yeah.
So you did travel to learn these things. And I guess my question for you is, what do you feel like you learned the most during your traveling to really like formulate? Because like the example I want to give is like how I interpret therapy and psychology. There's like a foundational level, but like how I administrate that to like an individual couple I work with is my interpretation of what I think it is. And I guess for you is like with all that knowledge you got from Eastern medicine, you growing up, we're like, how do you formulate that into like one like diagnosis with like someone you work with? Like, how do you put all that into like your work?
Yeah. I mean, you try to make it as simple as possible. You don't, try to get overly complicated. You try to find the most, simple solution for someone that you can. But I have a lot of stuff in my brain. But like when I'm working with somebody, I'm going to try to make it seem like the most approachable thing they've ever done, by sharing with them, the layman's version of what I'm doing and what they're experiencing. I didn't really study when I was traveling. I received some care. I had not decided yet. Okay. Yes. I left to kind of just create space.
Okay.
Yeah. But when I was there, I did get sick. I got really bad, like tonsillitis, and like I was ill when I was in Bali. And I was fortunate enough to run into somebody I knew there. One of my mom's old medicine friends, one of my mom's old midwife friends that she had delivered babies with. And she was there volunteering at this birth center in Bali. And she's like, "Oh, you're sick? You're here." I ran to her in a grocery store in Bali, in Indonesia. And she's like, "Come on down to the clinic." And they helped me out. They gave me acupuncture. They gave me herbs. So I received the medicine there, for the 100th time in my life. But it was just kind of a crazy, crossing of paths to do that and receive that care when I was like so far from home and I was so ill. I was bad. I got